Hey record nerds, check out the next level audiophile furniture at sidetrackedworkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop makes beautiful record furniture. I personally have a Sidetracked Workshop double sidekick in my house, and it's not only gorgeous, but incredibly practical. Check them out for yourself at sidetrackedworkshop.com. Don't keep your records in crates, and don't trust that feeble IKEA furniture. Give your vinyl the respect it deserves with furniture from sidetrackedworkshop.com. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 497 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And I'm on the road again. I'm here in Austin, Texas, getting ready for the Austin Record Convention. It is going to be sweet. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. I can't wait to get out there and start saying hi to folks and digging through the records and finding some goodies. And I hope if you're in Austin as well, we were able to connect. I could be easily distracted with a beer and barbecue, but towards the end of the day, please. Anyway, I'm going to make this upfront rather quick, but I got to tell you, I'm very excited about this episode because this is a gentleman I've always wanted to have on the show. In fact, I did a quick search of my emails, and I have been trying to get a hold of this guy for going on about 3 years now. One of my favorite bands of the 2000s, mclusky. And the lead instigator is a guy named Andrew Falkous, or people call him Falco. And mclusky was disbanded for many, many years. They had some killer albums. One of my favorites is mclusky Do Dallas. But they also had one which... and this is the true title. The difference between you and me is that I'm not on fire. Anyway, the band broke up for close to 20 years, I think, and they recently got back together and have a new record available on ipecac recordings, which I think is an excellent home for them. Their music goes quite well with a lot of the other artists on ipecac. The album is called The World Is Still Here, and So Are We. And I would highly recommend grabbing a copy of this album. And if you're not familiar with mclusky, get familiar with them and see if you could see them live. I recently had the privilege of seeing them on a recent stop over on their Australian tour in Sydney. Good news, they're coming back. And I'm going to see them again. And they're also going other parts of the world. I think they announced a bunch of U.S. dates. So if you get the opportunity, see mclusky. It is a killer show. Also, just a note, mclusky's vinyl is notoriously hard to get. So grab a copy while you still can. There's the new album, The World Is Still Here, and So Are We. There'll be links in this episode page of where to get it. But of course, go back in the catalog, mclusky Do Dallas. The difference between you and me is I'm not on fire. Grab that one. Even mcluskyism, if you could find it. Also, Andrew's other project, Future of the Left. If you like mclusky, you find yourself interested in their music, check out Future of the Left. I'm sure you'll like that one as well. All right, so let's get straight into it. I'm not going to fiddle-faddle around. Here's our conversation with Andrew Falkous of mclusky. Well, this week on the Vinyl Guide, Andrew Falkous. Yeah, Andy, Falco, what do you prefer? How do you prefer to be addressed?
I think Andrew is more unusual, although it is my given name, but Andy or Falco, or whatever feels comfortable coming out of your mouth. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter to me.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, mate, the fact that mclusky has put the pieces back together and is coming out with this album, I think most people know The World Is Still Here, and So Are We, May 9th on ipecac. I am an old school mclusky fan, and the fact that this is coming together is very exciting. And ipecac seems to be the proper home for mclusky, yeah?
Yeah, if by accident, I guess. But yeah, I suppose looking at all the gradients and plotting the different indices of band and label and noise and happenstance, yeah, it seems just about right so far. It's one of those odd things which just feels right, although only you can only put so much of your life into feels. You can only start with feels. You got to see what actually happens from this point on. But yeah, it's wonderful so far. I'm a bit scared of speaking highly of it in case it goes the way that most of these relationships end up
Well,
going.
look, ipecac just seems to have such a great track record, and the sort of music that they tend to put out, again, is very, very aligned to my ethos. And the fact that you guys are now on it is, to me, just confirms it.
It's lovely. Yeah, it feels very nice indeed, but it also feels not exactly like a beginning, because obviously we've made an album, but it feels like we're just coming. Hopefully, we're just coming to the end of Act 1, and Act 2 is to come. So Act 2 is where we are throwing a series of challenges by an antagonist. So we've got that to look forward to.
You live your life pensively, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I live my life faithfully, and I'm very lucky that I genuinely enjoy life. But the next problem is just around the corner, and it's about how you deal with the problem and the funny stories you can get from the problem. We sometimes as a band, so many things happen to us. This, genuinely, life throws so many obstacles in your way, like it does with so many people. But it becomes increasingly funny dealing with it all.
Well, you guys tend to deal with it with humor. I mean, I struggle to think of a single song that you guys do that doesn't have some sort of smart ass, humorous line, if not multiple lines in there.
Well, it's a question of, the band's personalities coming across without being too much. It should be funny with it, the music should be funny without being a joke. Sometimes, ultimately, all I'll be remembered for is song titles. I think that's a little bit unfair, but I think that's a little bit unfair, but I can understand why, really. But even then, somebody will occasionally go, "Hey, look at this long song title. It could be a McCluskey title," and you're like, "No. Do you think it's just any old collection of words?" There's a lot of work goes into those songs.
So how does a McCluskey song come together? Is it the riff? Do you start with Dave, Stop Killing Prostitutes? Do you start with that song title and work from there?
Well, what I do is I used to have paper files of song titles, but now I have actual files of song titles, some of which are ludicrous, some of which are, not funny. They're a joke, and that's fine. And that can be entertaining within the creative process, but you don't let it out into the world, because it would be, the Bloodhound Gang or something. Not that that's the only, painfully unfunny band in the world. But usually what happens is there's two sides to it. You go into a room, all the people, you say hello, you shake each other's hands, you play some music, you record everything you do in those moments, and then you take it away and you listen to it. And the key thing is not to get in the way of the first bit of that, just to let it all happen in the room, whatever's happened to the people that week, whatever they're carrying around with them subconsciously, and then to take it away and go, was that any good? And often it is. Often all I'm saying is the best songs they're virtually written in the moments they happen. There's always little bits going on, but the skill required is taking tapes away and knowing what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, recognizing those elements that are truly, I guess, unique or, because you want to capture the moment. You want to capture the spirit.
You want to capture the moment. And also, say, if you've got a bit of music, I find that if I have a second go at a vocal on it, I will sing something a lot more normal, for want of a better term. I will sing because you are, as a person, you're all the records you've heard, you're all the conventions you've heard, you're used to a guitar riff working in a certain way, a bass doing a thing, a drum doing a thing, and a vocal coming in a particular point. Whereas you need to be entirely present for the mistakes as well as the things which don't work, because they're the things which make things sound special or shit. So you've got to have the critical faculties later to go, yes, that is demented and weird and original, but it's also bad. We should never let anybody hear this.
Is there a song title or line that you guys have written or considered that was even too out there for you guys?
Oh, there were thousands, yeah. Or similarly, sometimes there is just a song title like Dave, Stop Killing Prostitutes, or the Future of the Left song, You Need Satan More Than He Needs You. That was a song title before it was a song. all I knew with that song title is it couldn't possibly be a song which used distorted guitars, because the word Satan and distorted guitars, that's not so much on the nose as a nose. And I just, it had to be this dancey, silly, almost light, and fluffy song. If a serious song called that to me would have been ridiculous. It's all about surprising people a little bit. All of our songs are basically just a thing, and then there's a twist. There's a little twist at the end. There's got to be the twist. And when we have released songs in the past which maybe haven't had so much of a twist, that's when they're not very exciting songs, I think.
Okay. So you write all the lyrics?
I write the lyrics that I sing, and then the songs that Damien sings. So on this record, that's 2 songs. He wrote those lyrics. I mean, occasionally some songs are written. Some songs, it's a question of that word didn't sound quite right there. I'm just going to change this word to this word. Occasionally somebody else suggests a word. That suggestion is usually complete bollocks, but it's part of the whole, esprit de corps of the band, where you can suggest stuff and you can ignore people as well. You've got to be able to be very serious about what you do, but you also realize that it's inherently a ridiculous thing. Those 2 things, you take the creation of it very seriously. But if somebody comes in, I mean, like some of the conversations I've had about my lyrics, where somebody's expressed an opinion about a ridiculous line I've written, and the idea that it even has to be broken down critically is hilarious, because it's all just bollocks.
There's got to be a certain level of satisfaction when you write a line like, "Your mother is a ballpoint pen thief." I mean, that is...
Yeah, I mean, it just rolled off the tongue. And the way to write a line like that is to write 1,000 other lines and wait for the right line to come along. The secret of writing 10 good songs is to write 100 okay songs, is to write 1,000 bad songs. So it's all a question of writing and writing. And when we started off being a band, we were just the not the culmination, that's the wrong word, that sounds far too arrogant. We were just a combination of our influences. But then once you play and you go on stage enough, and you find this confidence in you, you become yourself, but in musical form,
Right.
As opposed to we're people on stage who are fans of Pixies and The Clash. And here's the music we kind of make from these positions for ourselves we've somehow plotted in the world. When I'm playing now, I'm not a religious person, but you're kind of overcome with a spirit. In those songs, you know exactly who you are. In fact, I sometimes deal with a lot of social anxiety, but I never deal with social anxiety on stage. So, so there's I've at times dealt with being electrocuted in the face anxiety, and nobody likes us anxiety, but that's empirically just something you can observe because nobody's watching you, or 1,000 people have got their fingers stuck up at you or whatever.
Well, I would imagine these days, again, you guys went away for nearly 20 years. Coming back, it's almost like I would perceive it as a bit of a victory lap. I caught you guys in Sydney earlier in the year. You guys look like you're having a great deal of fun, and I always imagined McClusky as having a lot of internal anger. And when I saw the band,
Right.
well, look, I didn't see you back in the day. I missed you, and then you broke up.
Well, the original band. I mean, there wasn't ever anger. I mean, because John, who was the original bass player, is no longer in the band. So it's a reformation as much as you allow it, really. To me, it's a reformation because it was, to all intents and purposes, not entirely my band, but mostly my band. But there was never really anger in it. John was a very demonstrative performer, certainly. And I don't think it would be unfair to say that he was a variable performer. He was, in sporting parlance, he could be a luxury player. He was a fantastic performer when he fancied it, but when he didn't, for whatever reason, sometimes for justifiable reasons, he could be just half-assed or a bit withdrawn, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really approached performing like that. I'm not a natural performer. I never wanted to be on stage, really. I just wanted to play guitar. And I was probably 40 or 50 shows before I even said a word on stage, even though I was singing. I definitely didn't want to be a singer, but I've never given anything less than everything in a show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's entirely me. And the idea of being, whereas I think more naturally talented performers don't necessarily even engage with terms like that. They've been performing their whole lives. So the occasional drop performance for a show or whatever. But I will say, yeah, it is, for me, it's always meant to be the best fun you can have. That's the whole idea of it. And if there is a catharsis for me going on stage, I'm not aware of it. Like I'm not existing on that conscious level. For me, it is all these people have come to hear our songs. I love these songs. Let's play these songs and just have a great time. But yeah, I'm glad you think it was a blast, because that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be this huge blast with these silly people on stage.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to see you guys back in action. And this show is about collectible records and, you know, vinyl and that sort of thing. And McCluskey's a band that has quite a bit of vinyl, but very few repressings. A lot of the vinyl of the McCluskey catalog and some of the Future of the Left is very collectible. Are you aware of that?
A bit, you know, it's been mentioned from time to time. I have vinyl. It is the way that I own music that I really like, but I'm not necessarily a vinyl person, in the sense that for me, it's just the ultimate document of the record you made.
Mm-hmm.
And also as we get older, our eyesight means that actually reading CD text becomes quite the fucking challenge. You know, I need it blown up to vinyl sleeve sizes in order to correctly make out what the fuck is going on.
I'm of the eyesight now to where I have a hard time seeing what is side 1 and side 2. So right. I'm actually like, oh, what the fuck is it? You know, and yeah, and a lot of times people do these funny label designs where there's not even a side 1 or side 2, and then anyway.
The surprise me vinyl. Yeah, I don't want to be surprised.
Yeah,
I want to know what someone putting on.
Well, I don't know if I'm entering an act 2 or act 1. You know, I want to respect the sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a bit of a problem in my 20s with somebody who fetishized vinyl to such a degree. It was almost to the detriment of their personal relationships. I don't know what it was standing in for, a father figure or like a lost love, maybe at the age of 14. But it did get really bad, to the point where this person would have arguments with people on planes if his vinyl couldn't have its own seat. You know, this kind of behavior. And even though I find it very sweet, that kind of commitment to something, it is just a thing, albeit a very precious thing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it probably shouldn't take, you know, precedent over a passenger on a plane, though. I would humbly suggest.
I would agree with you on that, but but I understand where people, because I think vinyl in many ways is, to me, I know for sure, my dad and I used to go record shopping together. I know exactly where that moment that I'm trying to recreate for myself when I walk into a record shop. So yeah, that's just the way it is. So anyway, going back to it, McCluskey, a lot of the vinyl, like My Pain and Sadness, has never been reissued on vinyl.
Right. Well, I mean, part of that is obviously for reasons of taste, because it's a very cloggy collection of demos, that record. Mm-hmm. You know, which needed to be part of the evolution of the sound of the band, whatever. I'm not saying it shouldn't exist. I'm just saying I'd rather not listen to it with my ears. But yeah, I'm not. I don't really follow stuff like that. Although I was recently trying to buy an album by a band called The God Machine, an album called Scenes from the Second Story, which was originally on Fiction, I think, which was reissued, and I haven't been able to get a copy of that anywhere. And yeah, I guess these things happen. I don't really. Occasionally, somebody will message me and say something is selling for £200 or whatever, and I go, wow, and then I've got stuff to do.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring it up is things like McCluskey Do Dallas. Every reissue that comes through becomes hard to get. They can't seem to print enough of those. Are you involved in the reissues?
Well, I was involved with the last reissue. I did it, and we ended up having quite a few delays with pressing problems. So that was, I mean, that's the biggest scale thing I've ever done. Because I post everything from home. I do my own thing, Christian Fitness, and I do a lot of that from home. I've reissued. I've done 2 of those records on vinyl, but McCluskey Do Dallas is 4 or 5 times a bigger deal than that. It's very popular because Beggars reissued The Difference Between Me and You's That I'm Not on Fire last year, and that's, I mean, you can see it's half as popular as Do Dallas. Do Dallas is the record that people want. Some people really like The Difference, but it's definitely the odd limping older brother of Do Dallas, because Do Dallas is one thing to, well, not perfection, but to it's a fully realized singular thing, whereas The Difference does lots of different things at the same time with variable success.
Understanding how both of them were made, what was the difference? What do you think the secret sauce is that McCluskey Do Dallas has that maybe some of the other work lacked in some way?
Everything happened at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So we got good just before then, and the songs were pouring out, but we hadn't been going for so long that just doing simple things hadn't got boring yet.
Mm.
And another band would have remade Do Dallas or tried to do that again. But again, because of the personalities involved, it was a perfect storm in a lot of ways.
Right.
It was a perfect storm of being everything coming together. People who weren't previously focused were focused. People who weren't previously supportive were supportive. Everybody was able to give their time, and it just became easy. That the same way that, and we wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote just about every day, and that again was the secret. It wasn't like we just suddenly walked into a room and wrote 14 songs, and oh wow, it's an album. Those 14 songs came from 250 songs, and it's having the time and the opportunity to spend writing those songs. It was great, and it was really easy as well. It wasn't taking effort at all.
You worked with Steve Albini on Do Dallas as well as The Difference? Was he?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, both of them.
Now, and Steve is a massive fan of McCluskey. I mean, that must have felt good to have garnered that sort of admiration from a guy who has quite a high bar for preferences.
He definitely liked us. Yeah, I wouldn't say it just felt very nice and normal working with them. I've never been much of a I've read about music, of course. I know bands and I know the names of some people in bands, but I was never a music historian, and I didn't really come from the place of, even when I went back to recording that, I knew who Steve Albini was, but I wasn't some guy who follows people who are recording and who they've done. So whereas John, who was in the band, he was big, he knew, he had a chronology of rock in his head. I never really had that. I find when I'm looking at those details, I'm not thinking about actual music. But when we were working with him, I didn't know more than 4 or 5 records that he'd done, or rather, I didn't know that he'd done those records. So it started from, I just knew he was a name, and that showed that people were taking us seriously. The actual relationship, as far as I would perceive it, was really nice. It was really easy. It was like working with a friend who's read more books than you, certainly about the recording process, and has definitely recorded more bands than you, and brings that experience to bear. But a lot of the experience of recording with anyone who's good, not just Steve Albini, is yes, he knew all about sound and how everything worked, but the best producers, like the best sports team managers, make everybody feel good. and you perform, and especially if it's explicitly about capturing performances, if everybody's in a really tight place mentally, then, and everybody knows the songs, then that's how you get a good record. You don't get a record by putting a bunch of people into a room they're intimidated, into a room with a person they're intimidated by.
Right. What takeaway did you get from working with Steve? Is there any wisdom or guidance he gave that has just stuck with you?
No guidance. I mean, just a general way that these things, recording can be approached, I suppose. And also knowing that realizing that even though somebody you really like and really admire, having worked with him, I mean, the way he cut tape, the way he made fart jokes, both of these things were incredible things. But also just the idea that even though you like somebody and you really do admire them, you can also disagree with them on certain things as well. That a famous person you meet and you like, they don't have to be some facsimile you have to run off. I mean, he's an incredibly talented guy who, but he was Steve Albini, and he saw the world through Steve Albini's mind. He was like, you don't need to promote a record. And they're like, no, you don't have to promote a record. You're Steve Albini. The rest of us do have to promote a record. But he was a fascinating guy. And, with him as well, I think part of Steve Albini's legacy should be interrogating the legacy of Steve Albini, because that's the person he was. But yeah, he was very nice. Certainly when I was in my late 20s, he wasn't nearly as critical a person as I was. That was a bit of an eye opener. I was like, oh fuck, this famously cynical guy is basically Bluey compared to me. I mean, I didn't have the Bluey cultural reference back then.
Yeah.
but yeah, it was just generally quite just a nice human being.
Now, off Due Dallas, Lightsaber Cocksucking Blues, that song seems to be associated with the band more than most, right?
Yeah.
And it seems to have caught fire. Any thoughts or memories on how that song just kind of rose to prominence?
Yeah, because I mean, we were doing some recording in a studio called Twin Peaks in Wales. So this would have been roundabout when we did a show at a thing called One Live, which is like a radio. It's like every so often they'll choose like a city and they'll have like One Live there. And it was in Cardiff this year. So this would have been 2000. I don't know what month, late in the year 2000, and we played it there. And at first it was an actual piss take of Whole Lotta Rosie. That was the idea. That was. And it didn't have the midsection, and it just went verse, chorus, and it ended. I think there's actually a live performance online of that. And it was even for a band who wrote very throwaway songs at the time, it was explicitly a throwaway song. It's like, that's cool, but it's a bit throwaway. But then, especially since the lyrics were just garbled, I was just singing, for the first couple of performances, just there were odd words. But then when you come across a line like "I'm fearful of flying and flying is fearful of me," there's just this. I don't know. You wait, and then a song just takes on its own like internal magic. That is it. I would if you sat down with me with a red pen and said, "What is the meaning of this song?" I would say the meaning of this song is the feeling it gives you. And the feeling the words give you. And the 50 scenarios which flash across your head, which puts you in a place, but doesn't tell you a story necessarily, which has a beginning and a middle and an end.
That's interesting, because I don't listen to lyrics as much.
Right.
And I've heard that album and that song so many times that it almost kind of seems, very natural to me. But when I play it for someone else, that's the line. I'm flying is fearful of me. That's the line where they start laughing.
Yeah.
There's something there.
Because you're a cartoon character at that point,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what the concept of flying is fearful of you. I mean, what does that even mean? But it's weird. Some songs, they come from, they just they just come from somewhere, and some of those words end up in your mouth, and you're singing them, and it's like they've been conjured up by some eternal spirit, rather than I never sat down and wrote that down on a bit of paper and went, oh, I'll definitely sing that later. I'm not an idiot. I mean, it's a crazy thing. I don't know, but that was, yeah, it was originally short of that song, and then we did a demo of it at the studio in Twin Peaks. I think I still have that somewhere. I've got it on an old CDR. If I'm sure your listeners can remember such DAT machines and CDRs, all the fun we had. But it was never going to be like a main song. And then when we went to record through Dallas, the first song we tried was The World Loves Us and Is Our Bitch, which had been the song we'd recorded to do as a single before we went out there. And it just didn't happen. The performance wasn't there. And being in Steve's studio, if the performance isn't there, it sounds like the performance isn't there. And so we then tried another song that we had as an idea for a B-side to Hell with Good Intentions, and that was great. And that ended up being like the single, and then we went back, and it all went from there. It was easy, but Lightsaber wasn't considered to be a particularly important song or anything. But it was then when you just record it and then you put the vocal on it, you're like, oh no, that's ridiculous. That's so silly. Yeah.
It was at a time, this is 2002, if people remember back at that time, there was no social media. There was no, everyone was on computers and browsers, and it was, but there wasn't too many things that we could call viral. But I do remember a lot of animations coming out with Lightsaber on that.
Well, there was particularly that rather good one. That was, I guess that was pretty viral. It didn't translate into record sales, though, let me tell you that. But yeah, but no, it was a completely different time in the sense that, I mean, if we did some demos and I wanted to send them to someone, I'd have to post them.
Yeah.
I'd post them to somebody. It's ridiculous. Now somebody can finish a song and I can hear it like straight away. And that's completely taken for granted now. We mix live online, which is just bizarre. Rather than somebody, please turn the vocals up, I'd get sent a CDR, and then I'd have to say no, down a bit, and then it's like playing chess by snail mail.
I know people who are bandmates that have never met each other. They've never been in the physical same room. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could do that.
Yeah. It's a different way of doing things.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for us, it's all about the stuff which happens in the room. When we try and write stuff which doesn't happen in the room, it never works.
Yeah.
Now, literally never works.
Now, speaking of songwriting, She Will Only Bring You Happiness. I heard a story about this song that it was going to be a single, but when it came to the third verse, that immediately turned off management and everyone, and you guys wouldn't change it. Hey there, audiophiles. If you're seeking stylish furniture to showcase your stereo and record collection, well, look no further than SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop designs extraordinarily elegant record cabinets and consoles that add sophistication and panache to your music hobby. Handcrafted in the good old USA in the vinyl-loving city of Portland, Oregon, Sidetracked Workshop's designs are a music lover's dream. Made with real walnut veneered wood and brass accents, these gorgeous designs add class and taste to the record room and ship fully assembled and ready to enjoy. Just check out the designs for yourself at SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Look, you spend thousands of dollars on records. Don't keep them in a crate, and don't risk your records on those feeble wooden pegs from IKEA. Your music deserves the dignity of Sidetracked Workshop. That's SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Elegant solutions for the vinyl lifestyle. Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VINYLGUIDE10. I heard a story about this song that it was going to be a single, but when it came to the third verse, that immediately turned off management and everyone, and you guys wouldn't change it. So
no. Well, the thing is, we did change it for a video because there was no point in doing a video if it said sex criminals. So we had to make that choice, and I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't feel too bad about that. It was it was obvious we were already sinking at that stage. It just felt like a totally harmless thing to do. But no, it is true that when we got back from Chicago, and Craig, who managed us, and never made any money from us, of course. He is still genuinely a fan, lovely guy. Came around my flat, I was playing the songs, and he liked the songs. And then that song started, and you could see him getting more and more excited because even though it's hardly Jay-Z or Taylor Swift or whatever, it is a song with a certain commercial potential, possibly. Again, I point out our worst ever selling single, that was. Anyway, but then it got to the bridge, I guess, our old singer was a sex criminal, and he just went absolutely spare with me, He just couldn't, he was like, you always fuck it up. You always fuck it up. Why have you always got to fuck it up? And it was like, well, if it didn't say sex criminal here, it would be wrong. It's hard to describe. It is, a lot of the band is, at times willfully, but at times on a subconscious level, because believe it or not, we want to make money and be wildly successful up to a point. But we can't help but sabotage ourselves. Like, part of the essence of the band is to sabotage. Like, it's got to be in there. We got you with this gorgeous hook. Now we're saying sex criminal. It can't be played on the radio.
Are you worried that you'll sabotage again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, worried, but completely unable to stop that. like, because again, it's left and right side of the brain things times again. But that's part of it. But that's part of, and again, we never sit down and say, see what you can get away with lyrically. There's nothing like that. There's nothing to prove to anybody. But once again, when it's coming up with ideas for single, it's a question of going down and noting all the songs with language in it. And you're like, oh, for God's sake, why do we do this to ourselves? Why is the swearing right in the middle of the chorus? Come on. Because it's not a plan. Nobody, we've all got kids. We don't want to swear in front of our kids, but it's rock music. If there's not swearing in it, some essential part of modern life is missing. Because swearing holds us together. Come on, you live in Australia. Swearing is, that's in conjunctions. Swearing is everywhere. I think swearing reaches its most base, but also its most magical form in Australia. I've heard somebody say the word cunt so much it almost became like a chant. Oh, yeah. I think one of the first times I was in Sydney, somebody said to me, you see that cunt over there? He's a good cunt, that cunt. There's like, wow, that's incredible. It's a work of art.
We've got a state, the Northern Territory, and people call it the NT. There's an advertising campaign right now called "See You in the NT," and it's the word "cunt," and there's stickers. This is a state advertising itself, promoting.
You've only
tourism.
got to be careful. There's only one occasion in my life I've gone straight from Australia to the States, and that was a tough one. You do need to, in effect, go through some kind of language airlock in order to in order to shed all the words you've just become very easily accustomed to saying, because you can't go around California dropping C bombs unless you want to get in some very unexpected confrontations, I find.
Yeah, I get it. And I was raised in California. I understand that when you go back there, that word is the reaction to it is very.
You certainly
very
can't
different.
use it. You certainly can't use it casually. You need to obtain a license from any premises you go into that you can say it. And there's always an asterisk. Use of word does not necessarily denote an inherent hatred of women.
Yeah,
you know?
I think if you want to use that word in California, there's a 7-day waiting period. You got to get the necessary permits. Yeah, exactly. So prescriptions music. Talk to me a little bit about that. Is that kind of the holding thing for your works?
Well, it was just a label we started just to put out Future of the Left records. That was it. And subsequently, I've just put out Christian Fitness records on it. But beyond that, it's not really anything.
Okay.
It's not like it's not it's a thing when something's released. But it's nothing to get particularly exercised about, I would say.
So do you control all the McClusky music? Like if another reissue of Do Dallas was to come out, is that something that you manage?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't honestly know. The beggars were kind enough to give me Do Dallas to re-release a couple of years ago. In general, I think some things change hands because of contracts in a couple of years. As you can tell, I'm not the most meticulous businessman in the world. I have to do a lot of admin, basically managing the band in the short term, which became a little bit more than I was prepared for, because at first it was just doing some shows in 2019, going into 2020, and not worrying too much about the whole thing having a future. So it's kind of run away with itself a little bit. Mm-hmm. We thought we might write another record, but we didn't realize it would be this much of a serious operation, and like an actual label would be interested. But yeah, it's, as a band, I mean, I guess it's mostly associated with me. But I think legally and morally, the way it should be regarded is me with a bunch of people then, and me and some of the same people and a different person now, you know. That's certainly the way I look at it anyway. It's not, without the other people involved, it wouldn't have been what it was, and it wouldn't be what it is. But it's essentially mostly my band, I suppose, because I'm the idiot who writes all those words. But conversely, it's very bass led as a sound. There's lots of distorted bass. I mean, I've written a lot of actually more of the older bass lines, not really the newer bass lines, but it is very bass led. It's the sound of the band, the essence of the band is very dependent on the playing personality of the bass player, particularly.
Yeah. So the addition of Damien is in. He's a big fella too. So ain't
he just? Although he's a little bit smaller recently because he had a little bit of a health scare.
Oh no.
He's okay now, but it was. I don't want to. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it got quite serious at one stage. But he's fine. But I'm sure he'll eat enough to get back up to size and full power again. The thing with Damien is it's about the contrasts between the quite large gentleman, but the lovely guy and the guy who's always. Hang on, this sounds a bit more sexual than I was intending it to. He's always exploring himself, or he's one of these people who's always explicitly trying to improve. I mean, sometimes to a slightly tedious degree, but always to an honest degree. And it's really fascinating. I'm always fascinated by, big men who could admit they did wrong, for example. There's a lot to be said for somebody who can. Yeah, so somebody who can look at a situation and find stuff to criticize in themselves, not just other people.
Yeah. Oh.
There's a lesson there. There's a lesson there for all of us, because I'm not as good at that as I would like to be.
Introspection and that sort of thing.
Yeah, introspection. Yeah, I mean, the Daft Punk wears it like a badge sometimes, but I like it. It's good. It's good. And Jack, when Jack joined McCluskey, he'd done a degree in jazz drumming, so and that was where he was coming from. He liked rock music, but he never really played in a rock band. But Matthew Harding, the original drummer who played on Do Dallas and did a fantastic job. He was an excellent rock drummer, but he suffered a little bit when we tried to take things to a different place. Whereas Jack is just an incredible musician. I just can't. The ear that the guy's got. It's all about listening. I've said this about Jack in 1,000 interviews, so I'll sound very tedious to anybody who's heard one with me before. But he's a brilliant drummer because you can hear he's playing the drums. I certainly can. I can hear anything he's playing on. Because he doesn't like playing fast because it's tiring. It's a direct quote. Oh no, another fast song. They're tiring. So that's why he's always rumbling on the toms somewhere in the background. But is like with any good musician, and this is something Damien is good at and getting better at as well. It's all about listening. It's all about listening to everybody else, and it's always about what you leave out rather than what you put in. And he's fantastic for that. And despite all the hilarious jokes about drummers, I mean, Jack is the drummers are nearly always in good bands. They're nearly always the best musician in the band. They're the only ones who can read music or play other instruments. But he's
Well, to have a good band, you need a great drummer.
Yeah, but he's great. I'm super surprised. Maybe he doesn't have the slinky looks for it. I don't know, but I've always been super surprised that he's not ended up in some other big band that's like a big, huge touring operation, because he's definitely got that, and in an objective way I play the instrument kind of sense. Feel he's hung around with me for so long. I mean, it's been a long time. I've been playing with him for 23 years now. That's a long.
Yeah. So the two of you were in Future of the Left. And at what point did you start to think about reforming McCluskey?
Well, we never really had that conversation. So in 2014, we got asked to do some shows because this venue called Le Pub in Newport needed soundproofing. So we did the shows then, and then we did a show for cancer research, and then we did a show for these guys at a venue in Highbury in London called the Buffalo Bar. So they were closing, so we did a show to raise money for the staff. Then a few years later, Jack, and again, I've said this in interviews before, he said, why can we do a benefit show for ourselves? So we did do one, and we actually made a little bit of money. That was maybe, I can't remember the exact timeline. I've got a very good memory, but my chronology is always a bit fucked. So you'll have to, I might get things in the wrong order. We did a show, and then a few years later, we did a festival called Portals Festival in 2019. By that stage, Julia's the bass player in Future of the Left, and my wife, we had a daughter. It was getting really difficult to do shows just because of childcare. We don't have childcare. It's just difficult. The logistics and we were living in a different city. The logistics of doing shows was difficult. And then when we decided to do McCluskey shows as a 3-piece, even there was a one-off we were offered in Newcastle in 2018, maybe. I can't remember when. But it was just easier to do it with Damien playing bass and doing some McCluskey songs. But that was very much just a one-off. And then other people emailed to ask if we do shows in places, which is diametrically opposed to the way most bands create tours. Usually you send out the emails begging people to put you on. But people were coming to us and offering the kind of money, which meant that I could play a show, we could all play shows and come away with £500 each, which, based on the way we'd always done shows in our lives, I mean, that's how much you make from a week of touring.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, the idea of actually making money doing the shows was just like, this is absolutely crazy. What? I don't have a way of understanding this. My football team won a trophy last weekend, And that's the first time in 70 years they've won a trophy. And like, I didn't have the information on how to act because I've just never won anything, you know? And it's the same when you start getting paid for shows. I mean, the first time I ever got paid more than £500, like for a show, I was 46. And I just didn't know what to do. I was just there looking at the money in my bank account going, well, who takes it away from me now? but again, that didn't inspire doing the band on a more long-term basis. It just became a lot easier to do it. And we knew when we got together that it was fun. And as far as I can remember, the original lineup of the band was really good, but it could, because of the vagaries of the performers, particularly one of the performers, who was the best performer in the band, it could be a little bit hit and miss. This version of the band just isn't hit and miss. This version of the band is an onslaught, you know. Please note, not the old thrash metal band Onslaught.
Yeah, of course.
We are not Onslaught. No.
So Damien was filling in for those gigs, and again, you guys were just going from one off to one off, and
well, not filling. I think me and Julia and I had a conversation at one stage because when we first started doing these shows in 2014, it was very much Future of the Left playing McCluskey songs, and so Damien would come on and sing John's songs, but other than that, we'd just do it as a three, and Julia would play bass. But that very much felt like Future of the Left doing McCluskey songs. Whereas now it feels like there's two distinct bands, McCluskey and Future of the Left, who share two members.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's hard to always spell out the difference because there are lots of similarities between the two bands, but ultimately the difference is that Future of the Left songs are written by, as petty as this sounds, Future of the Left songs are written in the room when Future of the Left are in the room, and McCluskey songs are written in the room when the members of McCluskey are in the room.
And Christian fitness songs are written when you're home alone.
Exactly. When the voices in my head achieve some clarity, if only for a moment. When there's a break. When there's a break, all the voices, most of them shut up, and you can hear that one singular voice, and I make a little note, and then I wait for the next voice to become clear. So, that's a joke, and it isn't.
No, I understand, and that's it's good you have an understanding of how all that works, because a lot of people I speak to, they belong to multiple projects, and they have to think, oh, I'm writing this song, it's going to go for project A, and this other one's going to go for project B. So it's very clear where they fall. It's very clear.
However, that still means you can still write a song in McCluskey with the members of McCluskey, which sounds too much like a Future of the Left song. That still happens. In which case, that song just gets fucking binned off. You still have to do the left-right brain to create and then criticize. I forget which way around it is, but create then criticize. That's the way around we'll go. You still have to do those things. But yet, it's fairly easy to break down. But the thing which gets me after so many years is it's all so much fun. I can't believe how lucky I am. I know so many talented musicians, particularly a couple I thought were really vital, incredible musicians who kind of ran out of juice after a while. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that is. I think they were still challenging themselves, but or maybe they weren't getting enough back from music to keep throwing themselves at music. But for me, it's not always easy, and sometimes I can go through periods of a couple of months where nothing seems to work, but it's still just so much fun. Just picking up a guitar and just messing around is still fun, and you just find yourself. I have to be careful sometimes because I get in the shower. I exercise quite late at night, and I get in the shower, I close my eyes, and I just sing songs to myself. And on 2 occasions, I've nearly collapsed in the shower because I basically put myself in a trance state. And a couple of times I've just caught myself in my hands. I've got to remember not to put myself in a trance state with music in the shower. And I guarantee you, I haven't had anything more mind-altering than an alcohol-free beer. That's the level of inebriation we're talking. But it's just still magic. You just, any inch you go around someone's house, and if got a not an acoustic guitar. You're not going to pick up an acoustic guitar and start playing them songs from your concept album. That once happened to me in university. I went under a guy's flat. He brought out an acoustic guitar, and he said he wanted to play a concept album he'd written about the life of a fly. And I mean, you're completely broadsided by something like that. You don't really know what to do, and so you sit there and you listen. And it was me and another guy, and for a couple of songs, you politely put up with it. Well, this guy's playing these songs, so a big Marillion inspiration as well in these songs. That was
painful.
But by the third or fourth song, we were openly laughing.
I theorize a little bit about McCluskey that you guys didn't peter out. It kind of came to an abrupt end, and this capsule of McCluskey was saved, it was beloved, and it was missed for many years. And
yes,
from what you're saying is, you were doing some shows, and then people started saying, "Oh my God, McCluskey, is this an option? If so, come to our festival."
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, there's more to it than that. There's a little bit of a narrative, but that's all the detail worth going into, really. Mm-hmm. That's what happened. The original lineup of the band, it wasn't really dependent on how big it got or didn't get. And to be quite honest with you, if it had got bigger, it would have ended sooner, weirdly enough, because the tensions in the band would have been more pronounced. I think to be in a band with me, you've got to, mate. Come here. This is getting me a seat.
Hey, he looks like a troublemaker.
Yeah, love you, naughty boy. Go on, off you go. It would have ended sooner, definitely. It just had this. I wasn't aware of this fuse of it, but yeah, to be in a band with me, it's got to be, apart from your kids, apart from your family, it's got to be the most important thing in the world to you. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, then it just can't be anymore. That's it. And it requires that. It requires that commitment. There's so many bands, so many musicians out there have got that commitment, and they still get nowhere. If you're doing anything of meaning to yourself, you've got to give everything of yourself to it. And with the original McCluskey, I think that was the case briefly during Do Dallas, but after that, it was just basically me. And Jack was still finding his way in music. He was a little bit younger than both of us, so he wasn't as experienced, and he was the new kid in the band, so he wasn't as much of a figure. It was me holding the band together entirely. Whereas now, even though I'm the main guy in the band, I'm not holding it together entirely. I'm supported by two other people, and it's very lovely.
That's quite a big leap from doing a few one-off shows, raising some funds and a few festivals, to now saying, you know what, this machine's coming back together. Let's record some songs. Oh my God, these labels are interested. How quickly or how abruptly did that happen?
It seems like it's taken ages to me. I wouldn't say abrupt, because it's something we've always talked about, would like to do. But again, the vagaries of families and not having a lot of money to rehearse or travel between cities, that would kind of always come into it. We're very lucky if we can rehearse more than 6 hours a month, which isn't a lot of time. Back in early Future the Left times, we were playing for 50 to 20 hours a week and just really enjoying it. But that's just the way it goes. And again, certainly for me, I value all of those experiences so much more now. And I was very present back then. Like I say, it was like a vampire with it. I've got to suck all of the moments out of it, but I'm even more present in those moments now. And I think we all are. As the older you get, the more responsibilities you get, the less time you have. So when you do have that time to do the thing you love, you pour absolutely everything into it. But yeah, it's come together relatively quickly, I guess, from the outside, because the album was just announced a few months ago. But we started recording that album, God, it must have been like a year and a half before then. So it's taken, basically done over 3 weekends, spaced out over about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you recorded it first and then made the deal with Ipecac, or
no? We did a single, the unpopular parts of a pig.
Mm-hmm.
Released it digitally to make enough money to be able to afford our US visas.
Yeah.
And it was when we put that out, Ipecac, Mark from Ipecac got in contact.
Oh, okay.
Yes. On the basis of that. And then we subsequently went back to the same studio, which is called Otterhead Studios, with the same guy, Anne Chapman, to finish off the album. So we were there. I think we were at the studios altogether for 7 days. And then we spent over those weekends. And then we spent other time, mixing online and just corresponding, getting it right. But it was basically like, 7 days of 7 days of tracking, as they say in when they're making a Def Leppard record. Whether that was it always makes me laugh so much when you're watching Some Kind of Monster, the Metallica thing. It comes up day 412 or something. That's the entire time I've spent in proper studios times by 10.
Yeah, let's spend 2 months and $800,000 getting the right snare sound.
Yeah, it's quite the thing. But yeah, recording that album was a delight. It was so, again, considering the time we had to work with, again, it was very easy. What happens is, I think, like with any hobby, because it is a hobby for us, or a hobby which I guess borders a talent, you do it so much that you do it so much that you just get good at it, and so you get almost rewarded for all the hard work you put in. Occasionally the world goes, you know what, it's just going to be really fucking good fun and easy for a bit now, and the songs just fell out of us. I mean, it says a lot that I think all of our favorite songs in the album are the songs we recorded last, and I think that's which are towards the back end of the record, which I think is the right way around. You don't want to feel like you're running out of steam as the finish line ends. You want to feel as if you're picking up speed.
That's true. So this is the first of a few different acts, at least until you guys self-sabotage. You got some tours coming up. You guys are coming back to Australia now. As someone living in Australia, we're used to getting, a band coming through every 6 to 10 years. We're pretty far, right? But you guys have been coming back a little bit more regularly. Why is that? Is there a special connection to Australia?
Well, it's the band. I think the first place that McCluskey really happened with McCluskey Do Dallas was Germany. It's kind of petered out since then, but that was the first place where it was this feeling like it was an actual thing. Mm-hmm. But ever since then, so I'd say from one of the first tours we did with Jack was to Australia. We did Meredith Music Festival, and we did some of our own shows, including a show in the Tote where I think it was 48 degrees or something. Mm-hmm. There's a guy who came to that show who messaged me, who claimed that he lost like 9 kilos at that show or something. But there was loads of coverage in the Aussies. I don't know how long you've been in Australia.
25 years.
Oh, right. So you remember street press was a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we got a lot of coverage in Aussie street press. Definitely. I'm very aware of that. When I look now, I mean, at the risk of sounding like a total wanker, I don't have a Spotify account, but I do have a Spotify for artists thing, so I can see where people listen to our music. And the most popular cities for the new music is Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. Mm. That's with occasionally London or New York will be thrown in there, but it's Australia. That's where it happens.
Okay.
With the Anne feature of the left, it's just where it happens for us, and it's where it's found its home. Certain cities you play are just more rabid. Seattle is rabid for us. Don't know why that is. Don't really sound like Nirvana or anything. It just really works there. Chicago, it really works. And in Australia, it really, really works. It's just, that's where it's best for us. If we were as successful all over the world as we were in Australia, we'd have a living from it. Because obviously we don't make a lot of money from coming to Australia because it's so fucking expensive to come over, and it's getting more expensive all the time. I mean, the costs now are insane. Our last tour, we played to more people and made about half as much money because the costs are just through the roof. But I would pay to have the experience that I have touring Australia every time.
Yeah,
it's incredible. My wife Julia as well. She's from Melbourne. So
okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the reason, because I toured Australia to relative acclaim 5 times before we were, a couple or whatever. But I have no idea. But maybe because I'm not sure we're a particularly Australian sounding band. I can't say we're singing about any particular Aussie issues, but 10 tours in an average of every other year since 2002, including, when bands weren't operating. That's a pretty good take up on it. It's incredible. Like,
I didn't realize it was such a hotbed for you guys. I'm not complaining by any stretch. I'm not used to, bands coming along so often that I like. It may be, just the humor. The Aussies, I think, appreciate that possibly dry sense of humor and that.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's obviously something. It can't be an accident because it seems to go through time, and because a lot of people are dropping out of being fans because they're, I don't know, dying or or fully embracing adulthood and going to bed before 9. And I get it. I understand the irresistible lure of going to bed early. Even though I've never done it myself, but yeah, it just works. I've no idea why.
So going back to vinyl, there's a lot of Future of the Left material. A lot of the pressings, again, those are $150. Curses, Polymers Are Forever was never released on vinyl.
That was never released on vinyl. No, that could be re-released. We really want to, certainly the stuff which is our own, we really want to. The last Future of the Left album, The Peace and Truce, we really want to get that one remastered by Bob Weston, because he did a great job with Do Dallas when he remastered that, and he gave it a slightly different a slightly different sheen would be the word, but Do Dallas was pretty much there. He did a great job. But when he remastered The Difference Between Me and You, he made it into a different record. As far as I'm concerned, it's far superior, that the remaster that he did, to the original. The original was a little, I don't know, dull sounding. Dull is the wrong word, but it was very serious. It would be oversimplifying to say he just brightened it up. He's brightened it up in the bits which needed to be brightened, but we could really do with the same being done to the last Future of the Left record. Okay, The Peace and Truth, Future of the Left. I think the job he would do on that, if he could do a similar job, that would be great. But yeah, the first 2 Future of the Left albums, I know beggars have talked about reissuing them. I'd rather reissue them myself, as much as Julia hated having boxes of vinyl. I mean, at one stage, I had 2,500 copies of McCluskey Do Dallas in our dining room, and our dining room isn't set up for banquets. It's set up for 3 people eating, and so that caused some friction. It might be said, understandable friction. Nobody wants loads of fucking boxes at the dining room. So yeah, there will be a lot more reissues soon. Like I said, I'm doing a Christian Fitness, a third reissue this year as well. So there's lots of records.
Okay, because Christian Fitness, I think the only vinyl you have is This Taco Is Not Correct.
There's 2. There's This Taco Is Not Correct and Slap Bass Hunks.
Okay.
They're both on, which reminds me, I need to send out a copy of Slap Bass Hunks to a guy tomorrow who's been waiting for 2 weeks. So I've I got a little bit behind with my Bandcamp orders. But yeah, it's definitely within the next year or so. I did the first part of this year is just all focused on that McCluskey record, though.
Yep.
It's quite a big event, and also somebody else is going to be sending it out for me, which is just great. Even though that's usually where I make the money, sending it out myself, it is nice, the idea that I'm not going to have to put 2,000 things in mailers and have to deal with when the records don't arrive.
And the complaint, this came bent.
People, rightfully complaining about the postage costs to Australia, but I can't do anything about that myself. I'm not going to hire a small boat and row across. But yeah, it's ludicrous. I mean, buying records from other continents is not a way to keep yourself sane. I don't know if you've experienced
many times. I have to. Now, luckily, I have family in the U.S. and I could get records shipped directly to them and get it on my next trip. But yeah, if I want something out of the U.K., I got to pay
as much as the record again.
Sometimes more. So we actually end up kind of binding together. Like, we'll find a couple other friends who want that same record. It's like, here, let's just order 4 of them and we'll split the shipping cost. And yeah. So, and by the way,
like a drug cartel.
Yeah, exactly. I can't afford a whole bag myself, but well, look, we're very excited about having you down under again. And the new album, The World Is Still Here, and So Are We. It's out May 9th on ipecac. Again, perfect home for it. I've been listening to the whole record. I've been lucky enough to have the digital files. It's fantastic. I can't wait to see what else you guys have in store. And I hope you don't self-destruct too soon. And Andy, you are more than welcome to come on anytime. Always love hearing those stories and about McCluskey. And from an Australian or an adopted Australian, let me just say you are a top cunt.
Why, thank you. That's the ultimate, especially from an adopted Australian, because it's been through a really rigorous process of cunt analysis. So thank you.
100%. Actually, by the way, how did the name McCluskey come up?
It came up, I was walking down the street with Matthew Harding, and the band had a terrible name that he'd come up with, Best, at that time. And I said, why don't we change the name of the band to McCluskey? And he went, yeah. And that was the entire discussion. And I suppose it comes from Mrs. McCluskey, who was the headmistress of a school called Grange Hill, a British TV show. I guess that's probably why it was lodged at the back of my conscious mind. But that was the entire discussion. Okay. And that was the band. Lots of people think it's because of the cop in Natural Born Killers. It's not that. There's no other reason, although it could be that. I don't know. Again, maybe that lodged itself somewhere in my band ideas cortex. But it appeared out of the ether, and it seemed agreeable when it appeared. So that is the band.
At what point was it did it all go lowercase? Because
objectively things look better in lowercase. But again, it was a decision made by aesthetic notions of justice. It wasn't a decision made by me. Mm-hmm. I don't make the rules. I was simply put on earth to enforce them.
Cool. All right, Andy. Thanks again, mate. I really appreciate the time, and we'll see you down under when you get here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, cheerio. Well, there he is, Mr. Andrew Falkous of McCluskey. I don't say this about many men, but he's a super sweet guy. I like him. And his cat Genghis, too. Anyway, McCluskey, The World Is Still Here, and So Are We, available on ipecac. I think it's May 9th. Grab a copy, set up your downloads to download as soon as it's available, and see them live. I think you go to ipecac.com. There's tour dates available via some links, and it's a really enjoyable show. I saw him in Sydney. It was fantastic. So anyway, there it is. Thank you, Falco, for dropping by. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. And huge thanks to everyone who's leaving us positive reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That is killer. And those of you who are sharing on social media, putting them in Reddit forums and Facebook groups, and putting them on your pages and Instagram thingies, that is very much appreciated as well. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. I know you are. Cheers!